it's not to be understated, like just these little things that you're doing. So
be vulnerable, open yourself up, treat it like you're in the classroom with your new friends, students, and Scott. I mean, from day one, I knew I needed to fully immerse myself in a virtual environment. To do that, you have to go above and beyond, meaning you have to engage on the calls. You have to show your presence, show who you are. And, you just got to give it all. If you don't, you're not going to get as much benefit. I would say the benefit I got was I passed the damn exam. So there we go.
Boom! Welcome to PMP Success Secrets with Scott. In today's lesson, I'm going to walk through an interview with Corey, and we're going to talk you through how to get the max value from learning live online. Now, let's get into it. All right, Corey, you just took the exam a little while ago. How you feeling? How'd you do? Like, what's going on, man?
Scott, I got to be honest. It was a huge relief to pass. This is my third attempt.
Yeah.
Last attempt. The last one I had prior to having to reapply a year from now. So super excited, super relieved, super thankful to you and your team and all the training videos that you provided. So yeah, it's a great way to start off 2021.
No doubt, man. All right, cool. So two failures. I mean, didn't pass before we met, whatever. What do you think was missing then? Or like, what did you do then that like made you not be successful? Like, what was the issue?
Yeah, as I was reflecting, I went through all the things everybody else says, focus on the IDOs, focus on the memorization. And I just really wasn't connecting the dots. That's kind of the bottom line. And I remember one of the first videos that I saw of yours was the flow video, and just piecing everything together. And once I did that, I stepped back and went, oh, this makes a lot more sense. So, coupled with all the tools and techniques that your team, tells us to use, I was able to dive into the exam questions feeling way more confident and reflecting where the PM should be, where they have been possibly, and where they're trying to go. And just that helped really narrow down the options on the multiple choice.
No, that's awesome, dude. So it wasn't very long. Like how many since, we had the end of the year kind of like setting some time limits for us. Like how long were you in the accelerator? Roughly days, weeks, months? How long was it?
7 days. Exactly.
Oh, okay. So, all right. So you went from failing to passing, and how did you do? Like just by a touch, or how did you do at the end, like passing wise? Like, what was
so I got 3 on targets, 1 above target, and then 1 below target.
That's not bad. I mean, that's pretty darn good. And you got through. So talk me through kind of like how you approached the 7 days and like what it was like for you in a sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to say I really was starting from scratch again, because let me put this in perspective. I took my first attempt was in September, so 3 months ago.
Yeah.
And missed it. Then I signed up for 3 weeks later because I wanted it fresh in my head. So I redid my second attempt 3 weeks after that, missed it again. I literally closed that PMBOK guide, closed any access I had to other resources for training, and just said, I need to take a step back. So fast forward 2 months, it's Christmas break. I had time off from work, and I was scouring going, I need to take this again just to finish it up before the exam changes. Came across your video, and of course, watching a couple of your videos, watching the testimonies from other students that were successful, I was like, you know what? I'm going to give this one more go. And so I signed up that Monday and, went through the 7-day accelerator. I think started on Tuesday technically, and it wrapped me a full week around, and then took the exam the following Wednesday. So it was starting from scratch. And like I said, I had absorbed a lot of material probably the wrong way the first go around. So I had to really kind of reframe my perception of everything, and, just followed you and your team step by step.
That's awesome, dude. And like some of the first times we were together, obviously in coaching calls and stuff, like, how did you, like, what was it like going through questions? Cause it was really great having, like, we made sure that it was like those last week people, we put them into small groups together, and we were like, all right, let's do this. Let's talk through questions. You're all starting off from 0. We got 7 days. And then Aaron and some other people that you were with, like, all did the same, all passed within 7 days. What were the question calls like for you? Like,
yeah, I gotta say this. A lot of maybe prep training companies or other institutions that say, hey, we'll be there for you. Okay, it is what it is. Yeah, thank you for saying that. You and your team were honestly there for me. I felt, I mean, you were right off the bat. I got emails. You were saying, "Hey, text me if you need anything."
Yeah.
I mean, right off the bat. So I knew I had an accountability partner and help when I needed it. All I
Yeah.
had to do was accept the calendar invites for the Zoom meetings and log on, and then I was immersed with a whole bunch of other students that were in the same boat as me. We could learn off each other, obviously learn from the techniques to work through those multiple choice questions. So they were a game changer because I didn't really have a great way to attack questions before I met you and your team. And
Mhm.
you guys gave me the framework to really narrow it down and feel super confident going to that exam. So the team meetings and the coaching calls were monumental for me.
That's awesome. And let's talk through kind of like the questions in a sense. Like, so you didn't have an approach for solving questions. Like, what was your general pre, like, us type strategy for going through questions? How did you go about them the first two times?
Yeah. Probably not very smart. So I would say I did my best to get as much exposure to as many multiple choice questions as I could.
Okay.
I mentioned I'd gone over, I calculated over 1,500 multiple choice questions. Those were, short 20 question exams at
Hmm.
a different service provider. I went through a couple practice exams as well.
Cool.
So I was just trying to gain the understanding of how these questions are posed.
Hmm.
And, it got me fairly, I mean, I wasn't missing the mark completely when I first took it, but I still wasn't piecing everything together.
Right.
So I think getting that training from the coaches on how to attack the questions, coupled with your flows video, among all the other videos, really just kind of created that full immersion that I needed to truly understand and pass it.
That's cool. And so, like, let's still stick on the before. Like, you took a bunch of questions. You're like, yo, if I can take a bunch of questions, then like I'll see patterns or I'll recognize them or something like that. That's a common, like,
Yeah.
common approach. It's okay. Like pre, we do it different, obviously. And then like the actual, like if we're in one question, like pre, like were you just like rolling through it fast? Did you find yourself reading it multiple times? Did you find yourself like saying like, dude, I don't know anything? Like, what were you thinking? Like, what were you like pre, like question wise?
Yeah, absolutely. I would read the question from top to bottom, didn't go after the last part of the question first to understand.
Mm-hmm.
So I was missing the mark there, first off. And then I would go through, you tell a good story. I don't want to spoil it here. You tell it better, but you tell a good story of going A to D
No, no,
and
go
not
for it.
taking
Tell,
time.
tell whatever, dude. You
Right.
take go for it, dude. So,
Well, you're at a bar, you're meeting your significant other, and you go up to A significant other and you say, "Well, you're pretty good, but I'm not sure about you yet." Then you go to B, then you go to C, then you go to D, and you wrap back around. Probably not the best approach to find your partner in life.
yeah.
So with that being said, that was my approach. I was just kind of skimming through all the answers, not really taking time to understand where I was in the process group and not really understanding what I needed to eliminate in order to give myself the best chance to answer that correctly.
Right. And then, like, I think, like, I don't know if this is true for you, but like a lot of times when I see students come in and, as a dude that does things like has people go through quickly, I have to be very precise in like what I say to them. Is like I see them go like it's well intentioned, but they like roll through it fast. They're like, I got to solve questions in a minute, 12-ish, like a minute. Like therefore I should read it fast and multiple times and get to the answers and just high level. And like I see them go through it, and I'm like, in reality, they're just like wiping through very narrowly multiple times, and they just don't get there. Right. So I don't know if that's how you felt the first time, like, and how it like just compounds like frustration and all these things, right? So cool. So all right, let's talk about like afterwards. Like, first of all, what was your general approach when you learned it? Like, how did you interpret like the way that you attacked questions, like from the calls and the other techniques? Like, what's your interpretation of the methodology?
Yeah. Well, I would say from the learning side of it, you nailed it. When I went through a boot camp over a year or just over a year ago, I was learning by knowledge area.
Mhm.
And so you just get overwhelmed with all the details there from the PMBOK, and I really just understand you're just trying to hope you can regurgitate at the right time. So coming from your perspective, we were by process group. and I started to see the picture that needed to be clarified for me. So that was really the first step, getting that understanding. When we were on the coaching calls, we would take time. Everybody would go in a round robin and take time to say, hey, which process group I'm in, based off of reading the last part of that question first, then going back, rereading the full question, nailing down which process group we're in, and then taking our time to go from A to D and eliminating or putting like, okay, this is good, but I'm going to verify every single question. So once I did that a couple times, 20 to 50 times, right? We did multiple questions in our calls. Once I went through that process with the team, I found myself implementing that when I took the practice exams on my own. Scott, I ran through 200 question exams the Monday before that Wednesday I took the exam. That's it.
And so you didn't take like not that many, right? Like no, and you're going through it, and like some of the things that people say is like, well, the depth and detail that you guys are go through, like, how am I ever going to manage my time? Like, I can't do that long term. I can't spend X number of minutes doing it. But like, what would be your response to those kind of people saying that? Like, what would you think?
I would say understanding the flows of the material so you can really eliminate and isolate what you need to know. There were so many questions. They give you the paragraph questions all the time. There's so many questions where you can isolate where you are, process group, really fine tune down to at least two, more times than not, the answers that are correct, potentially correct, just by reading the last part of the question. So become really good with understanding that last part of that question. Fill in the blank as needed if there's not enough detail there. Once you're doing that, not prior to the exam, of course, and you're practicing it, you start to have more understanding and more faith in your judgment to read through questions and feel like you're in line with what you should be responding with.
Makes sense. And like the more you do, like there are in a sense like drills, and like some of the things that I'm doing in the course now is like we are laying out like specific drills. Like, hey, I want you to think through this. Like, just identify where you are. Just like, I'm just going to give you questions. Just identify where you are. Great. Now identify what the keywords are. Great. Now identify what the problem is stated in your own words. Great. And like you're developing these things where like you want to, on all questions, you're probably not going to be, it's not going to provide you the resource, the fodder to do all those techniques, but like that's the way you're going to be thinking, the student. And like when you get caught and you get sick, you can lean back on them to be like, okay, what are the keywords? What is the real problem? Where am I? Like all these things, like why A versus B, like let's go into like the factual because reasons. Find that to be more effective. So that's good.
Coupled with the stories you shared in your training videos. Those visualizations that you give with those training videos helped me picture something quickly. And then I could, based off reading that last part of the question, maybe reading some more of the context when needed, I could either say, am I in line with what that visualization was? You think about EVM, you think about Mr. EV, Mr. PV, and Miss EV, right? Yeah. Those things just stick in your head when you're doing those questions. And I knew right away, okay, what am I, should be, has done, or actual cost, right? So right. Those illustrations really stuck for me. So that's a fast way to eliminate and say, this is what I'm looking for right away. So love it. On those questions, you make up time anyway. And so you can have more time with questions that are not as clear.
And really, I mean, it's like you got to treat every question like it's its own thing. It's its own mystery, its own client, whatever you want to call it. And you're going in, you're using the best context clues that you can use, the process, you're sticking to it. And then you're bringing your own like judgment and experience in and doing the best you can. And so that's awesome. So that's kind of Corey and our, like from a practical approach of the questions. Now on the exam, right? Like you were 7 days in, you'd already been through it two times. Like, how did you manage your emotions and thoughts as you went through the questions? Like, how did you handle that side of it?
Yeah. Going through your course, I think the other thing for me to feel more confident was to know, hey, I've pushed the limits working with my coaches, knowing what the boundaries are when I'm thinking about these questions. Don't underestimate, and you preach this all the time, don't underestimate the experience of failure. Multiple coaching calls I was on with you in particular. I also work closely with Salvador and Karen. I got them wrong. I was on a call with 5, 10, 20 other people, and I was looking like a fool at times in my head.
In your head, yeah. To us, it's just like, okay, you got it wrong. Let's talk about it, dude. Yeah. Like,
and those things stuck out, and I remember them spot on. There was one question I had some agile things that stuck out because I'd gotten them wrong on the coaching calls right away on the exam. I was like, I remember this because I got it wrong. You learn quicker that way. So that's a really valuable lesson that I learned in those quick 7 days. I can only imagine if I had been on your course maybe 3-4 weeks. You know, 5 above targets, I feel like would have been really likely for me. And I know other people have gotten 5 above targets within 7 days. So
yeah, it happens all the time. But I think like what I'm getting from you as far as like, it's all the approach, it's the discipline. It's like, you know, and appreciating like the good side of missing questions. It's like, oh, great. I've determined that there's an area that I'm not interpreting correctly, or that I'm a little off on my like angle or view or whatever. And then the other thing is like in the calls, like just being open. Like the one thing I noticed is like, that's not the first time I've ever seen that room, dude, because like you turn your camera on from like day one.
Yes.
And like a lot of people are like, I don't feel comfortable. Like do whatever you want to, bro. But like turn your camera on, like creates like an openness to like, all right, we're doing this. Like we're doing this. Like you're open to it. We're going to talk through it. I'm going to be, vulnerable, if you will. It's not to be understated, like just these little things that you're doing. So
be vulnerable, open yourself up, treat it like you're in the classroom with your new friends, students, and Scott. I mean, from day one, I knew I needed to fully immerse myself in a virtual environment. To do that, you have to go above and beyond, meaning you have to engage on the calls. You have to show your presence, show who you are. And you just got to give it all. If you don't, you're not going to get as much benefit. I would say the benefit I got was I passed the damn exam. So there we go.
There you go. And then you have like something like, okay, so that's good. So we've killed all those things with like really good questioning. And like, I think that's like awesome perspective. Now, when you go and look at your normal work and your normal things, like how has going through, even for not that long, has it impacted how you look at work and things in any way?
Absolutely. I mean, in my particular instance, I'm going to be able to adapt a lot of what I've been trained on through your course, and really look to implement that and make my project management experience more involved and more applicable in my day-to-day. So there's going to be some things I'm going to actually be able to apply from day one, starting on Monday. So
dude, that is awesome. All right, cool. So there's probably people out there that are just like you. They've failed a couple times. They're like balancing like, hey, what should I even take it? Should I not? Like, is this for me? Maybe I'm not smart enough, or maybe this is too obscure, whatever. For those kind of people out there, if they're in that situation and they want to be where you are with like confidence and perspective and achievement and all those things, what would be your guidance for them? What would be your counsel to say, this is the way you should proceed? Here's what you should do. Here's how you should look at it. Like, what would you say to those people?
Number one, the PMP is a fantastic credential. Outside of having the initials next to your name, it's that sense of pride. You've worked through a challenge, and you've shown the knowledge needed, application needed to be able to get through that exam. I would say the values that you get from learning the material are going to last you a long time in any career field that you go into. I really love the leadership aspect of what the PMP guide gives us, and being able to apply that throughout the rest of my career will be fantastic. So lots of value there. As for getting through the hurdles that I went through, Scott, this is the first professional exam I've personally passed thanks to you, and learning how to take multiple choice questions. I will be applying these techniques to future certifications that I have on my horizon and my long-term goals. So thank you for that. That came away. That's not applicable to PMP necessarily, but that's just something I've learned from going through your course. And I would say, 2 months ago, for those of you who are listening, I was beat up. I put in the hours. I put in the time. I have a wife, 2 young boys at home. I was putting in the hours outside of bedtimes and before, everything got going in the morning, a full-time job. So everybody has a lot going on. You just got to make it a priority and say, I'm going to do this. And, you're not going to regret it. Give it all you got.
That's awesome, dude. Well, I really, really appreciate it. It's been a good 7+ days or whatever since you took it, but I'm really, really proud of how you did to bounce back and put it into motion. And you taught us a lot, like in this little call, like how much perspective can be gained in a short amount of time if you stick to it. So I really, really appreciate it. This won't be the last time that we talk. And I just want to say thank you, dude. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott.
All right, right on. See you later.